introduce a great client of mine, Dave Stubberfield, who will tell you all about what he does in a second. But firstly, Dave, I guess working with me, what's the biggest kind of end benefit that you've had working with me so far?
Well, so far, I'm on the cusp of the biggest deal in my consultancy career. That's just shy of £200,000. It's not there yet, but with your learning and your expertise, it's certainly guided me to where I am today.
Oh, Dave, that's absolutely spot on. So your audio is a little funny. Don't touch it. Don't do anything. But it's just my apologies for anyone watching. So let's do the intro, because I've started with the big hook, I guess, of kind of the where you're at the moment. So where were you at when we met? What were you doing? How did you get to be what you do, and what do you do?
Yeah, so I do all things kind of business improvement and cultural transformation. So it's embedding that kind of a continuous improvement mindset and culture into organizations, giving people the power to make improvements that they see within their power. Where I started, when I first contacted you, I'd lost what was then to date my biggest client. And it was just simply a case of they didn't renew. I thought it was over the line. There was no contract signed, sealed, or delivered. I hadn't considered my pipeline, and it just put me into a state of shock, really, of where do I go and what do I do? So that was really my kind of intention to get involved with yourself. And since then, I haven't looked back, really.
Okay, cool. So I go off on a bit of a bizarre direction. So you had a client, so you had one large client, and they didn't renew. I guess if we hadn't worked together, what were your options? What were you looking at? What were you considering? What were you going to do, I guess?
My options really were kind of, do I continue with the business? It was kind of very, very early days, and it was, do I just pack it up and go and find a full-time job? Or do I just kind of pursue it and keep going? I knew I was onto something. I know I've got the expertise to do it. It's just understanding the mechanics of how everything works together when it comes to sales. And that's the bit for me that was missing. So I thought, right, okay, let's pursue this for a little bit longer, see what we can do. And lo and behold, here we are now.
Oh, mate, I'm so glad you did, actually. Because I look at your activity levels and the things that you do on LinkedIn, you are out there. And that's why, I love having you as a client, because you've fully grasped not just what I'm showing you. I think that's a minor part of it, but you are out there being seen, being visible, and getting out there and, making what you want happen. And there's just so much credit for you and what you do. So good on you, mate. Absolute good on you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. That journey is kind of, I've connected with a few friends recently, and that consistency of being on LinkedIn, they've gone, oh, Dave, I understand what you do now. Maybe we need your support as well. So me just talking to them when we're in the pub and catching up isn't cutting it. They need to see the pictures and the content on LinkedIn as well.
Oh, fab. So when we did that then, so when we talked, you were facing lots of other options, talking to different people, but you were almost at the stage of, okay, I've got a little bit of time, but I might need to go back and get a job, go back into corporate, because you're from a sort of a corporate environment, might need to go back and get a job. So we spoke. What did you do for the first, say, 2-3 months? What was it that kind of moved you forward and gave you that forward momentum?
I think for me, it was understanding what I'd built so far and the journey I'd been on. I think if I was to turn around and say, right, let's shut up shop, I hadn't been reflective of where I'd come from. And I think it would have been, I don't want to say wasted effort, but there would have been a missed opportunity there. So I'd kind of come to a decision that I'd built the foundations to which I could grow from, and understanding what I was good at and what I needed more education, more learning on. And sometimes it's very, very simple things. One question that you sort of put to me to ask people was fantastic and a bit of a game changer, really. But yeah, that foundational level really was the understanding that...
Don't leave me on the hook. What was the question?
The question was going back to people you've previously worked with or know in your existing market, in existing network, where you can basically ask the question, who have you brought in recently? And having that conversation with someone I know said, we brought in a security expert for XYZ reasons. And as he was talking, he stopped in his tracks and he went, actually, Dave, I think we need you as well. And it was just that question really kind of brought to the forefront what he needed in the business there and then. He knew what I do, but he wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't until that question posed him and stopped him in his tracks and went, okay, yeah, I think we probably need Dave. And that was the question that for me, I kind of include in follow-ups. How you getting on? What you doing? Have you brought anyone else in? That's the one for me that's been the game changer.
I have to write that down and make sure I use that again. Okay, cool. So, so some of the perceptions sometimes. So, I want to ask you. I'd already built a lot. Here. A lot of people thinking about that might think, okay, so I built this big brochure website and I've got all that infrastructure. I think I know what you mean from that because of our work together. So what I'm reading into that is that actually you built a network rather than fancy brochures and webware and stuff that people think they have to have. And it was that network that you built over a number of years that probably you weren't tapping into as well as you could. And just by putting a little bit of direction is what kind of opened a bit of a floodgate for you into opportunities. So, am I kind of sensing that is the right thing there?
Absolutely. I think that the right way of phrasing it is, prior to working with you, it was a shotgun approach, and it was, I need to work on this today, and then I need to work on that, and there was no direction, there was no consistency in the journey, in the direction we're going in. And I think, again, fundamentally, it's taking that existing network and looking at who you know very well, who you can reach out to, what kind of level of contact you have with them. Could I pick up the phone to someone? Is it an email? Understanding the different intricacies of that really has given me a platform to go, right, okay, what can I leverage and who can I leverage from? To the point that looking at my LinkedIn network, there was someone I used to go to school with, how many ever years ago it was, that works as a customer experience specialist. Okay, we can have a like-minded conversation. So it's, okay, I haven't spoken to you in 15 to 20 years maybe, but look at what we do. And that for me, looking back at that existing network, I think I was hell-bent on finding the new people that could be the new clients, rather than looking at who is already in my existing network. And that direction really kind of just, it's changed the game for me, really.
Yeah, spot on. And I think, so for me, that makes it like a proud dad in many ways. Probably old enough to be a dad as well. But it's, most people think, they see your LinkedIn persona and presence. Oh, new business. And I had a call recently, and someone said, "Oh, new business. Oh, don't like cold callings. Like straight. You jump from 0 to 100 mile an hour. It's like whoa, no. It's like, for most people, if they've been in consulting or been in corporate for any length of time, they have a very underutilized asset that maybe they've tried to tap into before, which is their network and their network's network. But if you just kind of change the way you're doing it, either do it first or just change your approach, it can make a massive difference. So, I really am pleased for you. So there's a couple of things I want to ask you about, and then we'll talk more about you and the book you've got coming out and all of that. But I remember once I gave you quite some detailed, almost a bit of a shoeing or a kick-in on a video overview of a proposal that you had just done, and I gave you a tear down of that. Can you remember that?
I can, yeah.
And you took it really well, but it wasn't very complimentary about how you had structured it. But you took it really well. So when we look back at that, you had created this proposal, and you did what I call competing with yourself. So in the proposal, it was structured in such a way that I sort of pointing out that, okay, so you look at it, it's not logical how it's been set out, and actually it's causing more confusion than anything else. And sometimes when people are confused, they will go nowhere rather than take a course of direction. So how has things like that impacted what you do now?
Oh, massively. That feedback was phenomenal, really, because again, I think I write stuff down or I say things that make a lot of sense to me, but then when someone else is reading it for the first time, they go, right, okay, this is all over the shop. And that was the feedback you gave me. And I always go back now to the irresistible front end offer. That is what do you want? And then from there, so the one that's in the pipeline right now that's nearly there, that started from an irresistible front end offer of something very, very small. Then we started talking about how it could grow, and it's morphed into kind of a year's worth of a project. So that's that framing of that proposal has helped me to just open more doors, and that it's provided a framework for me of how I communicate with people as well. And it started to really kind of morph how I present myself when it comes to this is what I do, this is how I do it, and this is how I can work with you. And that's really kind of become part of the foundational brickwork, if you like, of taking that feedback on board.
Yeah, well done, mate. You took it brilliant. And so just obviously with sensitivity, so we were discussing this beforehand. You've got probably your largest deal to date, which is just ebbing and flowing on there. They want you, they're kind of negotiating about certain times, but kind of the overall picture of that is circa 200,000, if I'm allowed to say, and it's not signed off yet, but there should be some good positive movement any day there for you. Yes, when we met 10 months ago, something of that nature. Did you have those type of deals in your future horizon, if you like?
No, absolutely not. This is kind of a new ballpark where it's just completely new territory. And to even discuss those numbers, that was kind of back in dreamland when I was forming the company. This is kind of, again, the learning I've been through, that journey I've been through. If this was on the table when I very first started and there was questions around the price, it's not in our budget, we can't manage that, I probably would have dropped it by a percentage to sort of sweeten the deal just to get it over the line. But now I've kind of come to the realization that this is what I charge. You are paying for my time. This is what you are essentially buying, that service. So if you want to reduce it by a percentage, then that reduces the amount of hours or days that I can work with you. And I've been very, very clear with that. And that's how it works. And they've kind of made their peace with that. They know that that's the case. And it's now a case of them working out their budget, what they can do and what they can achieve. I guess the added value for me is what I've said is the more we work together, the more your processes will improve, the more customers will remain with you. You'll see that retention and loyalty go up. You might have upsell opportunities as well. So the cost of me will be beneficial for your business, for your people, for your customers. So you're going to see, I say 4 times return on investment is what I'm seeing at the minute. For these guys, in essence, it's a drop in the ocean for them because they are multi-million-pound deals they're dealing with daily. But if they can retain some of those clients, then that's when they see the real benefit. So it's projecting that future value as well for me. So yeah, talking about these numbers would have been dreamland at the very beginning when we started talking. And because of that question I mentioned earlier, that saw a deal around about £30,000 last year, which was fantastic. And that's just kind of been on the journey here to get to this point. So yeah, long may it continue.
Oh, man. And like, I think you're one of those clients that I love working with, but sometimes you wonder what's going on with those clients, because you're not a regular on calls. You know, you come in and you drop in as and when you need it. But I know by looking at your LinkedIn